morning, everyone. My name is Tina from the Daily Sprout, and I thought today we would go over some lessons I've learned this summer. This is my first time gardening in the ground, so I just kind of did whatever I wanted, threw things all over the place. I'm not the kind of person who likes seeing my plants in like exactly straight rows. I really like things to be super natural and super organic. And so that's kind of how I did my garden this year. And I just kind of wanted to go over what worked, what didn't, and do maybe a little bit of a comparison to the plants that I grew in containers last year in the previous years compared to how those same plants grew in the garden this year. So let's go. This is a hybrid tomato that's supposed to have been bred for growing really, really fast and producing a lot of tomatoes. And as you can see here, they are not doing great. They look pretty terrible. Now, my experience so far with these hybrids is not good. So I wouldn't recommend them personally, just because they don't seem to live as long as my normal like heirloom tomatoes. This one's got eaten by a deer, so it's not a super good example, but they don't seem to last as long. They seem to be more susceptible to disease. I have another tomato called a chocolate cherry tomato, which is delicious. However, once again, it is a hybrid. So you can see how sparse it is back here. So my hybrid tomatoes and my GMO genetically modified tomato seed varieties have been the most susceptible to disease. They don't live as long, and saving their seeds is kind of pointless because if you save the seeds and then use those new seeds for the next year, the plant gets even worse. It doesn't give me as much fruit, and the disease is worse, like everything is worse. So if I can't save the seeds, it's a pointless plant. I had a lot of trouble with squash and pumpkins in containers, and I think it's because of the roots. They need more space to travel along with the vine, and in containers that's just not possible because the roots will come up to the edges of the container. But one thing I've learned about the squashes and the pumpkins as a new gardener is that they take up a lot of space. I knew they would. I knew they'd travel. But I didn't realize how much. So this one's okay because it's here by itself. But all the squash and pumpkins that I planted in the main garden are so big that they're just shading things out. So I've had to move stuff around. So this is a really good example of a squash that has taken over this entire garden bed. So another thing I didn't know is that the squashes and pumpkins come in, well, in my garden at least so far, two different styles of growing. So there's the vine, and there's this kind of like bush option. So this is actually two separate garden beds, and the path through is right here. And as you can see, this squash has completely taken over. My lesson for next year is place the squash and pumpkins in their own area. So this is the viney one, and it's traveled from over here all the way down. Here's the end of it now. Here. This is an eggplant, and eggplant, and they're getting way bigger than I was expecting. I have a couple more growing up here, and they're much older, like a couple of months older than these plants. They're way smaller. So either they're not getting as much sun, or there's not enough nutrients in the soil for them to get big. So a few lessons there. Space things out. Although I do like the look of this, to be honest. It looks so beautiful and lush, and I don't regret that at all. It's just that harvesting is a bit tricky. This is cannabis. In BC, we're allowed to grow 4 cannabis plants per household, I believe. We just have the one. I had 3 and 2 of them ended up to be males. So if you've never grown cannabis before, if you end up with a male plant, you have to cut them down right away. Otherwise, you'll get way more seeds and not as many buds. So if your goal is buds, then cut down the male plant. So I ended up with 1, but look at the size of this thing. It's huge. I did grow these in containers, and I am now realizing that my containers were way too small. Yeah, my plants never got anywhere near this size, nowhere near as bushy, nowhere near as buddy, if that's a word. And yeah, I'm really happy about it. I'll give you a close up here. So, in conclusion, I think that my main lessons going forward for next year are I need to work on some soil. I'll probably just add more compost. I'm going to add a compost on top of everything anyways, and more wood chips and stuff for the winter time, but soil mending and spacing. My tomatoes, I actually really crammed them together and they seem to be doing perfectly fine, minus those hybrid varieties. It is a bit difficult to find the tomatoes once they're ripe. There's so many hidden tomatoes in this garden because I've planted them so closely together, and I'm absolutely not thinning out any leaves because I'm not seeing any disease. So it's like a fun scavenger hunt to find all the tomatoes, which I don't mind. It's an excuse to spend more time in the garden. There's a few things that I would actually plant closer together. Corn is the one thing that I didn't plant enough of. The corn only grew to about 2 to 3 feet high. We planted them about 12 inches apart from each other, and honestly, I would probably next year plant them like 3 or 4 inches away from each other. It'll help with pollination because the corn needs to pollinate amongst itself, and I can fit way more in there. And so I think next year I'm going to buy different seeds, see if I can grow a couple of different varieties that I haven't grown before, see if I get better luck with those. I didn't really get a great potato harvest this year, maybe like 5 pounds of potatoes, which is like a bag of potatoes. So I plant way more potatoes. And I'm going to expand the Jerusalem artichoke bed because I just love the way they look, and it's a really good survival food. You can leave Jerusalem artichokes in the ground all the way up until spring, and they'll still be good to harvest. And they'll just, if you don't harvest them, they'll just keep growing. So I think that's a really, really important food to have. We still got a couple of months of growing season here. So I am probably going to try and plant a few more things, more of the cold weather crops, like brassicas, etc. So we'll see how those go. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time.